both of these is they celebrated feast where they thought the thin line between, let me demonstrate, there was a thin line between earth and being human and physical, and death and being spiritual. And that these things that they would celebrate, especially Samhain, would represent a very thin line or thin veil between the living and the dead. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, make a little noise once in a while. Do this. I can hear your head rattle around. Okay, that was their hope. I'm trying to show you where these things came from. And yes, I do have a lot of scriptures for us to look at. I told them to get 2 CDs. I may not get all this on one today. All right. They believed that Samhain represented a time when the hostile aspect of the supernatural forces were free to wander around on this side. Okay. They believed there was a spiritual world, and it wasn't all good. There were some bad guys. They didn't necessarily call them demons, but they thought there was some evil spirits on that side. And this day, this Samhain, will kind of make the veil so thin that those bad guys from the spirit world, they can come over here and roam around freely on our side for a while on that day. They really believe that. Okay? Let me give you a quote from a book. This is page 127 from the Celtic pagan holiday book. I'm going to read this now. Talking about Samhain. During this interval, the normal order of the universe is suspended. The barriers between this natural side and the supernatural are temporarily removed. This side lies open, and all the divine beings and the spirits from the dead move. Hang on a minute. When this side lies open, all the divine beings and the spirits of the dead can move freely among men, and they can interfere here, sometimes violently, in our affairs. That's a quote from their book of what they really believed was happening. On here. Okay. The ancient priests of the Celtics, you know what they were called? Some of you may know. Druids. Druids. Okay. And guess what? Besides being called Celts and Celtics, I taught this a while. Do you remember what Celtics were also known as? Gauls. Mm-hmm. Gauls. Galatians. Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, we'll get to that later. So one of the first things that the Celtic Druid priests would do on Samhain is, this is where you got bonfires. They would ignite bonfires. Bonfires comes from 2 words. Bones and fire. They were originally, that's how we would pronounce them if we had originated them. We would call them bonfires. But the Druid priest, the Celtic people pronounced it, they designed it, and they pronounced it bonfires. You know what they were? Whenever they would sacrifice animals, they'd keep the bones. And they did human sacrifices too. And they'd keep the bones. And once a year, on October 31st, they would go out in the field and they would pile up wood and bones of sacrificed animals and people. And on October 31st, on Samhain, they would make you, this evening, put out the fires in your house. Okay? No little cuddly fires in your fireplace for a while. Tonight, extinguish all the fires. The only fires that can be lit tonight are us Druid priests doing the bonfire. Bonfire. Okay, that's where bonfires came from. Right. Are you with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Now, these happened thousands of years ago. Keep up with the calendar. Around the year 1600 AD, which is not that long ago, around 1600, the pagan priest, the Druid priest, they had been getting some influence from Christianity. Some Christian missionaries had been kind of going that way. And you know that Paul had already set up some churches of Galatians, or Gauls, and stuff. So in the year 1600, right around 1600, they quit having actual human sacrifices and actually burning any human remains. And they created a thing that you're familiar with now, a thing called effigies. Effigies. You know what an effigy is? An effigy would be, we could take some of your clothes, your pants, and your shirt, maybe your shoes and socks, and your hat or whatever, and stuff it with hay. And make it kind of like a scarecrow kind of thing, dressed in your clothes. And take a sack and make a head and kind of decorate it up with eyes and face and everything, and put gloves and stuff it all with hay. And we would make this thing that represented you. And we wouldn't actually kill you or burn you anymore, but we would create an effigy that represented you. And guess what we do on that night? Burn it. Hang up and burn it. We're getting some Christian influence, so we won't really burn people now. We'll just burn things that represent people. Little effigies. Okay. I'm trying to show you where all these things came from. All right. As Christianity began to spread all over Europe, here's what I want you to understand. Listen to me, little guys. When Christianity began to spread up into Europe and get into England and Ireland and Scotland and all around, and all the Celtic / pagan / Gaul kind of people, they wouldn't, even when they got born again, even when they said, okay, I think I believe in this Jesus, here's what they had a real problem with. They wouldn't just completely abolish their traditions. They would say, well, okay, we could call ourselves Christians and we could kind of believe in Jesus, but we don't want to quit our parties. We don't want to quit doing all these things that we have fun doing. So how could we keep Samhain and Beltane? How could we keep these things and still kind of do them and have fun doing them as Christians? Yeah. That's kind of where this stuff started. Yeah. And so you had some, now I'm going to involve some of you Catholic people. And as Catholic missionaries and evangelists, some of them begin to kind of work with these guys. Okay, well, if you'll take the Christian label, we'll figure out a way where you can still kind of do what you're doing, but we'll call it Christian now. And the Catholics said, well, we've got this thing called Lemura, which stands for All Saints Day. And instead of doing that in May, I'll tell you what, we'll change we'll call it a different name now. Instead of calling it Lemura, we'll call it Hallows Day. Because they both really mean All Saints. Lemura means All Saints in a new way, the beginning of All Saints. And Hallows Day, they both kind of mean All Saints. But this will be a remembrance. We'll kind of work with you guys here. Because, Samhain here is all about dead. And so we'll do All Saints about the martyrs and the saints who have already died. And we'll celebrate that with you on October 31st. So you guys can keep your October 31st Samhain, which is kind of about dead people. But we'll put a Christian label on it now, and we'll call it Hallows. Oh, my bad. They weren't going to do it October 31st. That comes up in it. They said, let's do it, instead of doing it, let's do it November 1st. My bad. You guys are celebrating this thing about dead people on October 31st. Well, let's celebrate good dead people, martyrs, and all the saints who've already gone to heaven. Let's remember them, and let's honor them on November 1st. Okay? Are you with me so far? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had a little mistake right there. But so I'm trying to get you to see the picture of Christianity expanding and expounding and evangelizing, being involved with some pagan people, saying, how can we still make you Christians and still do what it is that you enjoy doing? Yeah. Okay. So that was their idea. We won't celebrate Lemuria in the middle of May anymore. We'll call it Hallows Day, and we'll do it, instead of the middle of May, we'll do it November 1st. That was the original plan. All right.